It's all these conversations that we're trapped in as human beings that were handed down to us. Like, if you're successful, it should look that way. If you're happy, it should look this way. To who? Right? And at least in my personal experience, I find that a lot of the times I'm pursuing things that really weren't my expression or something that I really wanted to pursue, but it should be that way. And you should have it down that way. And I think that's what also blocks us off, right, from those things that we want, like the abundance and the limiting thoughts and the limiting conversations, because we're living in a should. We're living in a, oh, well, it has to look this way. And if it doesn't look that way, then there's something wrong.
Suzanne Paul here, live on her timeline. It's 4:31. Look, minute late, but that's all right. We allow for these things. I'm here with the ever delightful and looking very glamorous, I have to tell you, Patricia Valderrama Garcia, who was joining me last week. Now, I do think that the link that I posted for our Friday meeting did not work properly, so I'm going to look at the settings because it was a fascinating conversation. But Patricia is in El Paso, Texas, where it is not 4:30 in the afternoon. So on Friday, it will be a recording again, and I will have to learn how to make it work. In the meantime, we are live on Facebook. Hello, Patricia.
Hello, Suzanne. How are you?
I'm really well, thank you. And you do look absolutely beautiful and very glamorous, and you have your hair done and everything.
Oh, thank you.
So I posted on Facebook today that we are talking about abundance and allowing. But what would you like to talk about? I didn't know. I just posted what I thought and felt. What would you like to talk about today?
Well, I think that abundance and allowing conversation is perfect. And then we can veer off into like shoulds, because today on my Facebook, I was posting how the shoulds, how we live according to it should be this way. Or why is it shouldn't be that way, kind of thing. So from the abundance and allowing, it almost plays into that same conversation, right? Like we have conversations about how quickly abundance should come to us or how quickly it should manifest. And how do we allow it to manifest, right? What are the blocks in having our dreams come true or having the things that we want come to fruition? And half of the time it's us not allowing it to happen, right? Through some sort of negative thought pattern that we have. So what do you say about that?
Do you know what? That's amazing that you just said that, because I had a conversation with somebody just earlier today, not even maybe an hour and a half ago, about exactly that thing, that like what's occurring is, you know, a lot of what like we want in life. And the reason is because the thought patterns that we had going on for ourselves, like, are being removed. And I noticed it for myself. So like I'm having this experience this year where business is coming towards me, people are wanting to work with me, and like everything that I thought was possible is now actually coming into being. But the difference is, and why it wasn't last year, is because there was fear present. And that fear pattern that I had going on in my head was really impacting the allowing. So it was like I was really scared, and that blocked the universe from delivering it. And now I've there's something, and I can't actually pinpoint what it is that I've given up, apart from the emotion of fear, but specifically the thought that I was having. But something's moved out of the way and it's coming towards me. And yeah, and it's like, it's a bit miraculous in that way.
It is, right? And we say that it's a miracle, and because these are things that are uncommon and don't usually happen. That's kind of when we refer to something as a miracle, like, oh my God, it just happened, what a miracle, kind of thing. Yeah. But if you really tapped in to what you want to create for your life, to what your goals are and who you are, and if it's actually something that really speaks to you, it naturally evolves. And it's just getting like the whole getting out of your own way kind of thing is really true, right? We're the only ones that stop ourselves from things coming to fruition or manifesting, especially like the abundance conversation.
Yeah, it's really true. It's funny, right? Because, so as you know, because you were one of my eternally grateful test readers for my book. So the first chapter of my book is called The Only Thing Stopping You Is You. And it's a really uncomfortable conversation for ourselves because we do not want to take that much responsibility for our lives going the way that we want them to go. But the thing that I've noticed about this, and I find this uncomfortable myself because I'm just like, that's not how things work. I don't think, like, that's not, my brain is like, no, this isn't how it works. But when I write things down that I want, and I know that they're soul aligned, like they're really properly aligned with what it is that I'm up to in the world, then, and I actually commit myself to causing them to happen, then they start to happen without me even thinking about it or doing what I call work, because it's a natural expression of who I am in the world. And it's like, I say it's like a miracle because it is like they just start showing up and I'm like, I don't really understand this. How is this happening? And my conscious mind cannot compute it, but that is what happens. And some people that so I just, and you see, and like this conversation is almost an example of it, really, because I had no idea what we were going to talk about, and we were like, I was rushing to get us live on Facebook as quickly as possible, so I just typed in some words and it was exactly what we're talking about. But I didn't know. We didn't have a conversation.
Well, there you go.
Exactly. So
Right.
tell us about the shoulds that, like, we were shoulding all over ourselves that get in the way. Like, I'm curious, what was it that you were saying earlier?
So it's the same thing about abundance, right? Like abundance should look a certain way. If I have an abundant life, it should fit into a category of what is said abundance should look like. So it's all these conversations that we're trapped in as human beings that were handed down to us. Like, if you're successful, it should look that way. If you're happy, it should look this way. To who? Right. And at least in my personal experience, I find that a lot of the times I'm pursuing things that really weren't my expression or something that I really wanted to pursue, but it should be that way. And you should have it down that way. And I think that's what also blocks us off, right, from those things that we want, like the abundance and the limiting thoughts and the limiting conversations, because we're living in a should. We're living in a, oh, well, it has to look this way. And if it doesn't look that way, then there's something wrong. My abundance should look this way. It doesn't. So now there's something wrong. What's wrong? What's wrong with me? What's wrong with my life? What's wrong with everything? Why doesn't it look like so-and-so's abundance? Or, I was told that abundance had to be financial. I was told that my worth is based on how much my net worth is financially. Like there's all these things that we're living with, that if we look at it and discern what's really true for us and what our expression is, it may not be that. And it's finding that piece. Yeah.
And where in your experience do these shoulds come from?
Everywhere. My mom, my dad, my culture, the people that I'm around, the media, like it's everywhere. There's an abundance of that, right? Of all these, your life should look this way. Your life should be that way. You should have the latest car. You should already be in a home by the time you're this age. You should already have children. I should have had children. I don't have children. I'm going to be 52 this year and I don't have children. And it's almost like, oof, what did you miss out on because you didn't have children? Or like, oh, you kind of like, aw, you don't have children, aw, kind of thing. I get that reaction from people. And now, oh, like you guys are all by yourselves, my husband and I, with no children and no grandchildren. Aw, I'm sorry. Like if you don't fit into that particular mold, then you're like not happy, like you've missed out on something. So it's also that, right? Like the reaction that you get from other people that are living in the shoulds. And I'm not saying that having children, you shouldn't, right? But if it had been your choice and this is your choice that fulfills you and makes you happy, there's nothing wrong with it. The same way that people having children that fulfills them and that makes them happy, there's nothing wrong with that either.
That's right. It's like somehow it's not okay to choose not to have children.
Or families, or the conventional kind of family. Like anything that steps out of a norm, like there's something off, there's something not right, or there's something wrong with you.
Yeah, and the thing that I hear there is like, well, there's this notion of what's norm, but I'm like, where's that written down? Like, who gave us that? And this is like, you know, this notion of normal. I'm like, well, what is that? I've been questioning that actually since I was a teenager. I used to sit in my classes at school, go, we're talking about normal. What is normal? Please tell me what this normal thing is. I don't know what it means. And it's like, there isn't normal. There's nowhere that says this is what is normal. You must be like this. You must have this. You must do this. This. And I'm like, you know, it was funny, right? Because I was talking to somebody a few years ago about the rules of dating. Because, you know, I talk about sex and like all of that. And I was like, well, where are they written down? Now, there is a book called The Rules.
Yes.
But the author, yeah, we've all read that book. Do you know what I mean? But it's like, and it's really not a very good book, to be quite honest. Right.
Well, it's a thought, right? Like,
pardon?
It's her expression. It's her expression of what
yes, exactly. And that's exactly the point. It's like, those are the rules according to that woman who, to the person who wrote the book. They're not the rules. They're the rules that this person decided are the rules. Now, do they have an impact on your dating life? If you want them to, of course. But where is it written down that you can't sleep with whoever you like on the first date? Nowhere. As long as you are over the age of consent in your country.
You shouldn't do that.
As long as you are over the age of consent in your country and you are sleeping with somebody who is also a consenting adult in your country, there is no rule that says you can't sleep with them. Now, does it have a moral connotation to it? Sure. If they're married, that might be against your code of conduct and values. Okay. It might be against their code of conduct and values. Okay. And it might be something that hurts their partner. Equally, that's something that needs to be dealt with. Is there a rule that says that's not okay? No. Is it grounds for divorce? Maybe. But those are the choices of the people involved in the marriage. They're not your choices. Right. And it's like this kind of, we are actually free to choose what we want in our lives. And when we choose consciously what we want in our lives, that's when the abundance experience is present.
Yeah. I want to say something about that because it's very interesting. Yes, we're free to choose anything. And there's also an awareness of knowing that maybe some of our choices may not occur as a good choice or a better choice to others. And then there's going to be something that arises out of that. And are you still going to be good with your choice based on anything anybody else will say? And that's when you know that you're being true to yourself, when whatever anybody else says doesn't matter at that point.
And you know, like when you're making a choice or like evaluating what is the choice that you want to make, the consideration in that conversation might be, what do other people think? And, you know, look, do they have a valid perspective on it? Of course they do. Does it necessarily have to influence you? Well, that's up to you. And, you know, and if it does influence you, are you, as you say, going to be okay with the choice? And because ultimately, if you're the one making the choice, you need to be okay with the choice that you're making, not anybody else. It doesn't matter really what anybody else thinks. Mm-hmm. And you know, that is fundamentally the issue, really, at play with abundance thinking, alignment, like allowing is, are you being true to yourself? Are you operating consistent with your values, with your purpose, with what is important to you? And if you are, that's what will allow for abundance for the experience of abundance to come into your life. If you're not, take a look.
Right. And organically, it'll happen, right? So when you start believing in your choices, and when you start making choices according to your truth, and to who you are and to your expression, then you naturally surround yourself by people that are in that conversation too, and in that expression.
That's right.
your tribe just like naturally arises at that point, because you're in the same conversations and you're up to the same things, creating the same things.
Yep. And it's 4:45. As you know, on Suzanne Paul's timeline, we
Right.
operate strict time standards. We do not go over 15 minutes. That's all from Patricia and me. We will be back with a recording on Friday, and I will learn how to make Google Drive work properly so I can share a link with you. In the meantime, have a good week. Bye.
Have a good week.